All right, all right. Welcome back to another episode of the Behind the Back podcast. We are your hosts. I am Marcos Conan Negron, and beside me here, as always, is Ben, the Jet Rets. Ben, this is the second straight week that I'm saying that we're doing an episode after a Kings loss. How are you feeling right now?
I'm trying to remain as positive as I can, and I'm battling my inner demons. I'm not gonna lie, it's
Uh,
tough.
it's tough. So before we get into what was yet again another up and down week for the Kings, with some good and some bad, and probably some even worse when we get into the thick of it. Before we get into all that, for those of you who are audio listeners and want to check out our pretty faces, come check us out on YouTube at the Behind the Back podcast. Like, subscribe, give us a follow, leave comments, all that fun jazz. So the Kings went 2-2 since the last time we spoke. And the last time we spoke, we had just gotten blown out by Dallas, and we were hoping, okay, we're going to take this second game against the Mavs. And we go in, and the energy was awesome. Like, we started off good. We took an early lead. Shots were falling. We were playing good defense, kind of getting in their grill. And before we kind of get into the logistics of it, Ben, I'll let you speak on it. What was the most important thing that happened in this game?
Um, Unfortunately, Malik Monk, about a minute and what was it, a minute and a half, maybe into the game, he went down with an injury, and it was announced that he's out 4 to 6 weeks with a MCL strain. So we will probably no longer see Malik this year, unless the Kings make an awesome run in the play-in and the playoffs, and somehow find themselves in the Western Conference Finals.
Mhm.
Otherwise, yeah, I
Yeah.
think we've seen the last of Monk this year.
Yeah, like the best he could do is come back by the second round if the Kings make it that far. And that was disheartening. Like Luke, so the play was he was defending on a fast break. Luca was going out, was going up for the bucket. Luca falls on Malik and hurts his knee. Um, and for it wasn't anything dirty. Luca just fell, and he immediately was apologizing to Malik when it was happening, checking to see if it was okay. Um, it sucks, and the weird part about it was that the team collectively pulled it together and continued to press on and have a good lead. Going into the half, we had a pretty sizable lead, and Luca was being contained. He wasn't kind of really popping off at all until I would say right before halftime. Then he kind of made a few shots and started getting into a groove. Um, I thought Keegan played really well in this game. Keon was doing a good job in this game. The and but it was I just didn't like I don't know how to describe how disappointing the second half was, because I think it wasn't even the third quarter. The third quarter we did a really good job too, but then once we got into the fourth, we were up by I believe as much as 12 or 15 at one point in the fourth quarter, and then we just gave it all away by making bad decisions, turning the ball over, and it ended up finishing with a Harrison Barnes awkward miscommunication toss back to De'Aaron that led to a backcourt when we were down um, by just a couple points, and the Kings never really had a chance after that. I didn't know if there was anything like. Obviously, Sabonis extends the streak, and he's extended the streak up to tonight, so I don't have to say this every for the rest of the games we talk about. But I know Kessler had a good game. It just didn't feel like it felt like we had it the whole time, and then we just messed up and did what we've been doing for most of the year.
Yeah, I definitely think though losing Malik in this game, you know, obviously the Kings have blown leads this year, even with Malik out on the court. But it's one thing to be said: if you lose anybody in a game, you lose depth. And the Kings in this one, you alluded to it a little bit, that they started hot. Like they were running on both ends. They were first to every 50-50 ball. Like they were going out to win this game. And it definitely wore on them. Harrison Barnes played 40 minutes, Keegan 35, Domas 36, De'Aaron 40. Like, you had so many minutes on these guys, so many hard fought minutes, because this was it was a great matchup against Dallas, 2 games in a row. It really was. I mean, these are two pretty well matched teams, and they were giving it them their all. And then in the fourth quarter, you started to see those legs catch up with them, where jumpers were starting to fall short, and a lot of the execution defensively, like the switches and just the blitz defense it just wasn't working to our advantage like it was the rest of the game. And that losing Malik, like, it really showed in that case, because it's like that's one more guy you can lean on just to give a couple other guys a break, so that then the end of the game, yeah, we're gonna have Malik out there, but the rest of these guys too are gonna have a little bit more legs to give. And so it really did catch up with them. I think that was a major factor in this one.
Yeah, and I think what didn't help either was, but again, Luka had a good game, but it was really Kyrie in the fourth quarter that took over and was just doing the Kyrie things, hitting the tough shots, killing our momentum. And I know I agree with you that our execution just fell apart. And we've run into this problem quite consistently this year, where they've just lacked the consistency to finish these games that they've been in control of for most of the game. And our defense has improved, but I think there's something to be talked about where our offense this year has gone stagnant just one too many times for just too much for a little bit longer than we saw it last year. And obviously last year we were a historic offense, and that was hard to repeat, but we have had in some of these games that have been closer than what they should have been, or in even the games that we've won at further earlier this week, we were like stagnant for like 5 or 6 minutes where we weren't really
Yeah.
getting that much. Um, and not only have we been inconsistent there, and I think that leads into our defensive struggles when we try to hold off and hold on to our leads. So
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I think that it's frustrating from like a fan perspective, because we're seeing a lot of the same things rear their heads towards us. Um, and it feels like this team is struggling to get over the hump at times. And especially when another team is putting together a run, to not be able to slow the bleeding. You don't have to fully stop it, but get a bucket, and like at least get yourself back on some kind of a pace. Like, obviously we're talking about the Dallas game, but just to use as an example, as a fresh example, in tonight's game against the Knicks, there were a couple instances where it was 10-0, 12-0 runs that the Knicks had against us. And it's just, and that was huge for the Knicks, because number one, they're at home. That's a great way to get your home crowd going, buzzing, right? And then number two, like, they were fighting from behind a majority of this game. So when you can count on the fact, whether you're still down after that second run of 12-0, if you can count on the fact you're probably going to get one more of those runs, then just keep it close, or at least keep that pace, because you're going to get another 12-0 run where the Kings can't get a bucket. And it happened. So, yeah, it's just stopping the bleeding has been so hard for this team this year, for whatever reason that is. I'm not sure.
yeah, and so when we go back to the Dallas game, I think what really, the legs got under us. Foxy missed a couple that like he normally makes, and those bounces just didn't go our way. And when it comes to the Monk injury compiled with like I think we're underestimating now just kind of how much the injuries were really piling up on us, and just like bit by bit by bit as the season has gone on. Um, we didn't have Trey or Sasha or Kevin in this game either. So Kessler had good minutes. We were relying on Duarte too. But I think when we push off of this game and we went to the Utah game, we were obviously first game without Malik. We're a little nervous and trying to figure out, okay, who's going to really step up in this situation? Obviously, Fox and Domas have to step up. Keegan, HB, everyone, when you lose a player like Monk, who has been our third best player this year, we need everyone to have all hands on deck. And it didn't feel like it for the first half of the Utah game. We were letting them hang around. We were doing fine offensively, but we were also not making them work for everything. Again, this Utah team is young. They're playing rookies like Bryce Sensabaugh. I don't know if Keontae George is a rookie or in his second year, but they have young guys who were having kind of their way with us early on, and it was a little like unnerving to me. Um, but then we had Trey back, we had Sasha back, and I don't know if it was just fresh legs, got their rhythm back, but it was really good to have Trey back specifically. If I'll touch on this, and the combination of Trey and Davion Mitchell, they did a really good job. And obviously Keegan had another good game, 25 points in this one too. And I think also since I want to say post All-Star break, but it's more since even the Malik injury, Keegan has kind of found a way to make himself more of a three-level scorer. He's attacking the basket, trying to get into a floater, taking a few more middies, and then still being aggressive from three. And I've liked that, especially in this 4-game stretch. I've really liked what I've been seeing out of the way Keegan's attacking offensively. And they threw up this stat in this game when Fox had over 7 assists in this game, and the team was 19-3 at the time when Fox had 7 or more assists. And it was weird to me because I didn't think that. I was like, wow, I didn't realize that he doesn't really get that level of assists that often. And it's funny how when your team plays, has a point guard that plays like a point guard, you're a little bit more effective. So I thought that was interesting. But what really stuck out to you in this game that you liked from the response without Malik?
I mean, it was honestly that it was a response beating a team that we should be, even though we were shorthanded. Um, it was nice getting back, Trey and Sasha even in this one, just to have a couple extra legs, and a couple guys you can lean on for some minutes to get your key guys a break. Um, yeah, Fox put together just an all around great game in this one, and that's something that like we'll touch on who the most important players, like the key players, are going forward with Malik out. But Foxy, we need him to step up. We really do, and it showed in this one. I mean, he looked like the best player on the court that night, and that's something that you got to have from him, especially considering who was on the other side of the court. Just a lack of experience, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, really good response to a couple tough losses, and this one coming at home as well. So just getting back into a kind of a rhythm, a winning rhythm was nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, I said we started off pretty poor in the first half. We were tied at 58 going in, and then I think the Kings went on like some absurd. It was like what 28-3 run, something like that, or
Yeah,
it
it
was
was a
something.
huge one.
It was a huge run. That one that we like kind of been waiting for a while. We were just draining everything. Our defense was on point. We were suffocating them. And one thing I've noticed since the All-Star break, I think at least in the month of March, we've been employing this blitz style defense where depending on who's the main ball handler, if it's their team's best player, we're going to go rush 2 guys at him right at half court, force them to make the decision and kind of move and flow and try to recover, force and like try to contest them, thinking maybe I feel like with that defense, it's weird because it's almost like, okay, you guys are going to make this decision. So if you're going to pass to the wing, then we're going to try and adjust. And it's weird that I think the one thing that's like, I think it's working so well now because teams haven't really been able to prepare for it since we've been throwing it at them recently. But I think the more film teams get on us when it comes to that, I think we're not going to be able to do it as often, especially when we run into these great guys like we saw with Luca or like what we saw with Jalen Brunson. I know we'll talk about it in a second, but it works every now and again. But I think it's something that the Kings are going to have to try and find a balance of, hey, we're going to blitz you guys when you least expect it and see if that can create a little chaos that way. Because at the end of the day, this is the NBA. Just man up and try your best. I understand everyone in the league is good, but if you guys help, play good help defense and just prevent many switches from, I don't know how to describe it. If it just feels like in these games that we've struggled in, that blitz defense has been, it's kind of bitten us in the butt with too many open threes or a guy missing an assignment or recovering too late and then they just blow by and get an easy layup. It I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, that's kind of the key. You kind of let it into it. As a game progresses, I touched on it that guys get tired naturally, and the blitz defense is the most effective when guys aren't tired, because guys are going to run out. They're going to close that gap a lot quicker and a lot more effectively in like a first, second quarter scenario than they would in the fourth. Um, and obviously, situation comes into play. Are you pumped up, or is your adrenaline going, or is it a 2 point game, or is it an 8 point game like tonight where you're just trying to battle back into the game any way you can? And I think you're right on there with teams are going to start figuring that out. It's it's an easy play to break down. It turns into a simple like high school level move the ball until you find the open guy kind of thing at that point once
Yeah.
you break that double team. And the Kings tried it against some good point guards, some good ball handlers here in the past 6-7 games. And I would say it's worked about as well as it can for this team. The realistic issue is this team is severely limited defensively. And that's going to be something that we are going to talk about this offseason, is something that we need to, as a team, to address. There is a lack of physical defensive presence on this Kings team. And it's tough, especially in a league that's so offensively driven, when the Kings can't stop the bleeding as often as they are, and they're not leading the league in points per game and having a historic offense. Like you're going to find more and more games like we've seen this year where either we have a really big lead and then we maybe close it out with a big finish, or it's a closer game and we win, or we blow our lead and lose the game. Like last year, we saw more scenarios where we were blowing teams out of the water because all last year was a story. And it was, these guys had something going for them every single game. So yeah, it's tough. That blitz defense, it works at times. I don't think it's going to work for you for a full 48 minutes. And
Right.
that's the tough part about it.
Yeah, and I think we've noticed a difference once you insert a guy like Keon, who has been so good for us these past few games, um, especially in actually like the past like 2 weeks. He's just been awesome, especially as he's been adjusting and shooting the ball really well too. And Davion's been shooting the ball really well too. So you have our best defensive players can be out on the floor because they can contribute offensively as well, and that overall will help our defense moving forward and as these games progress and potentially in a playoff matchup. But when your two best defenders, and I would arguably say Fox would also, he's been stepping up defensively, getting blocks and steals. I think he's since the All-Star break, he's first in the league in steals, or at least in the month of March he was. So he's making an impact defensively, and that's when your three best defenders are your three guards, your three smallest players. And I mean, I would say, and I'm not going to disrespect Keegan, he has been our best wing defender, but our back end struggles. And in this Utah game, it wasn't the issue because we went on such a big run and we closed them out. But in the Clippers game, it was a little nerving at first, but we saw the difference. I think the biggest difference in this Clippers game, which we did a really good job against, they were without Kawhi, but that's a lame excuse because we were without Monk and Herter, and like everyone's hurt. And teams are going to be missing players at this time of year. But the Kings had a good win against the Los Angeles Clippers at home, and Paul George was in this game. He started off hot, and Keegan did a good job matching him early offensively. And then the game really changed when Davion, Alex Len, and Trey Lyles were in this game in the first half. They really did a good job just like doing really great on offense, and Alex Len was setting the tone defensively. He had 3 blocks in 5 minutes, and it was
Yeah.
that blitz defense works when you have a defender like Len who can recover and change shots. But the problem is, and I'm not saying that Domas is bad at it because he does a good job, but he is easier to adjust to, and Domas doesn't contest shots the same way because he doesn't have the same burst. And does that limit you? It's kind of like a pick your poison. Domas is so good at everything else, and he's a solid defender. But the problem is, there's only so much he can do. But we noticed the difference in this game in particular. We noticed when Alex Len was in this game, he made his presence felt. What was for you? What were your kind of big points in this game?
To be honest with you, it was third quarter execution. It was a tight game going into the half. The Kings only had a 5-point lead. And there was a rhythm that you sensed from the Kings that was like, there's something here. They just need to kind of pull the top off the basket, and in the third quarter, they really opened it up and took a commanding lead. They outscored the Clippers 35-19 in that third quarter. And just, they, in a lot of ways, never looked back. They shut down a lot of runs that the Clippers were trying to make, which is always good to see. You want to stop that bleeding. And just having an enormous game from Sabonis, a 22 point, 20 rebound. He was one shy of his triple double. Can't believe you didn't get, one assist, Domas, but do better. No, he was monster. Foxy had a good game. It was in Keegan. He really stepped up. He showed us 3 levels of offense that just you gotta have from that guy. And that dunk that he had on Zubats was kind of eye opening for me. So that was in the third quarter, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and that was part of that big run that really opened it up and took a commanding lead. Yeah, Keegan got the ball at the top of the key, and he took it down the lane and dunked it over Zubox, and it was something we haven't seen from Keegan. Like, we've seen him get aggressive and go to the rim before, but nothing like this. Like, this was a genuine, like, poster.
Mm-hmm.
And it was eye opening in the sense of, this is the player that the Kings need him to be for the future. Like,
For
obviously,
sure.
right now, do it right now, Keegan. But like, this is the guy we drafted because we want him to be this 3-level threat.
For
And
sure.
it really showed in this one to me. I think, to be honest with you, I know Keegan didn't have like the best statistical night, but I think he, aside from Domas and his statistical night, I think Keegan was the player of the game in this one for us, because it was just to be able to rely on him for 19 points and at all different levels, like, and his defense was on too. It was good to see.
Yeah, and I think that was the level of development that I figured when he stepped into the defensive role this season. I kind of figured there were going to be times where his offense was going to hit a slump, because you can't, when you're that young and you go from being just a catch and shoot 3-point shooter in your first season to all of a sudden, hey, you're going to be guarding the best player on the other team every single game for 82 games. That's a completely different style, and it takes a lot of energy out of you, and especially when at the same time you're being asked to, hey, you're still going to have to try and hit your shots. And we saw it for the past couple months. He's kind of slumping a little bit, having a good game here and there, and for the past like 6-7 games, he's really been streaking and finding his stroke and finding different ways to attack and attacking the paint, whether it be with a floater or with an aggressive dunk. And he's fine. I think he's starting to figure out how he can manipulate the defense with his 3-point threat, and then he's able to break in. And I think he's been so good lately. And to do that against, while guarding Paul George, who is, Paul George was doing exactly what Keegan used to do all of his career. So to kind of, have a player who can be comparable a little bit, I really like that matchup. And Paul George started off hot, but he was really quiet the rest of the night. And to touch on Domas a bit, like I had mentioned earlier in the year, I think it was like our second or third matchup. It was our third matchup against the Clippers when we actually beat them. I was like, Zubac was a tough matchup for Domas, and Domas ate in this game. He played really well and shook off the whole, you know, struggling against those physical bigs. I think Domas he just showed like why he is an all NBA center. And again, continuing the streak and being as consistent as he can be. And he also took a couple shots in this game. I mean, he does every single game, but you could tell a couple times he was either he got kneed, and he's kind of been dealing with that. Um, so he's still being our Iron Man and still plugging and chugging and making the big plays that matter. And Fox did a good job in this game too. Davion and Trey were also very huge in this game, and I think they provide with what I really love about Trey is that he provides the size while being, a little bit of a 3-level threat himself. I've seen such development in Trey since he's gotten here. He used to be a kind of a more
Yeah.
catch and shoot guy. Now he's not afraid to pull it down and then try to make an entry pass. Like he's doing those things now, and having a player who's kind of figuring out his role in the system, and he's been shooting really well. I think he's been averaging around 13 points since he's been back. So that's the kind of help we need now that Malik is out. And same with Davion being really well. He's shooting really well from three, taking it to the basket and being aggressive. We're getting the off night that we drafted, and that we've been
Yes.
seeing shades of off night for the past couple weeks now, and I've really been loving it. He's playing to stay in Sacramento, and if this is the version we're gonna get, I'm completely okay with keeping him here. I'm glad that he's proving me wrong. I've in the sense of like we've been disrespecting him all year, but I wouldn't call it disrespect. We've been criticizing him all year, and he has, despite all of that and losing his job to Keon and still having to play alongside him, he's responded really well.
Yeah, this is the Davion, the off night that we need as a backup point guard all the time, every night, like for all 82 games. And he hasn't earned the respect defensively from the officials. He still doesn't get those calls, and he gets called, he gets things called against him that other guys like Patrick Beverly, who has earned that respect, they probably wouldn't. So it's nice to see him find a little bit of a rhythm, especially later in the season when we're gonna need to lean on him for some minutes that he might not have otherwise seen with Malik out. So just you can almost see the confidence in the way he's playing right now, and it's a confidence that I haven't seen since year one with him. Like, and year one, like you're a rookie, you're still feeling out everything, but there was a good like 3-month stretch for Dave that he was like putting in his bid for rookie of the year. Obviously, he didn't end up being, I don't even think top 3 or maybe top 5, but he had like a 3-month stretch where it was just confident, everything he was doing confident, and it was awesome to see. And you're like, this is the, it was like, okay, Monty has not missed in
Yeah,
any draft, right?
he
And
went like
then
19-7 in that span.
yeah, and then year 2 happened, and he kind of like, we wanted to see a jump from him, but we didn't get that jump. He kind of stayed the same. And then obviously year 3, it was a regression, and it was just kind of like, we need off night back, and we hadn't even used that nickname for him in I don't know how long,
Yeah.
because it was like a ghost or a shell of what off night was. So right now the Kings have off night back, and that's huge. We're gonna need him, so awesome to see that for sure.
Yeah, the combination of him and Trey is going to be imperative going down
Yes.
the stretch. We need them to be at their best if we want a chance. And so against the Clippers, they did a great job. And that was a great statement win against a team that's fourth in the West that we had struggled with recently, and we split the series with them. That was great. And we're like, okay, we're going to take this momentum onto the road trip, the last road trip of the season, last 4 games, right? So we had New York, Boston, Brooklyn, and the Thunder. And that sucks. We have to go all the way back across to the East Coast when we were just there like a week ago. So this game that we just watched, which had all the makings of a nice playoff atmosphere for the second time. This was at Madison Square Garden in New York, and it was a picture-perfect start, to say the least. The Kings outscored the Knicks 35-20. We were 7-10 from 3. Foxy was out here playing like he knew he was on national TV. He knew everything. Keon hit 3 threes in a row. Davion had 8 points, like right out of the gate. Everything was working, and I knew it wasn't going to last. Like this in the modern NBA, the first quarter is almost like the most meaningless quarter out of like the whole thing, because you could be down 20 and you could still come back and win by 15, which
Yeah.
is exactly what happened here. But the thing that I loved coming out of the gate was we showed New York, we're like, hey, we're here, we're playing physical, we want it more than you do. But the New York Knicks are coached by Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau. That's hard to say. And that man is a defensive mind. He was the defensive mind before Mike Brown even like figured things out, right? So Tom Thibodeau just got these guys back on the right track. Focus on defense, and the offense will come. And they flustered the heck out of us the rest of the game. And the Kings were doing everything they could to kind of fight off the run from kind of happening. Every time they got close, it kind of felt like they were pushing away, like, okay, you guys are within 5, we make a couple threes, or we make a basket here. We keep things just at arm's length. And then the last 5 minutes of the third quarter happened. You want to talk about how we fell apart there? What in your opinion, what were the reasons why we ended up losing this game?
I mean, honestly, they just stopped going away from what was working. There was a lot of really nice ball movement to start this game. And it seems like the Kings always start games moving the ball really well, moving without the ball. And then they start doing the substitutions, and even the first, 3 subs come in, and you see the same kind of ball movement and running without the ball. End of the first quarter happens, second quarter starts, and we kind of lose that rhythm in flow of offense, and we have to like find it again. And it's frustrating because in this one it was that story, but for the third quarter. It was like the first quarter was awesome, second quarter was still pretty good. You still had a good lead going into halftime, but then third quarter you really started falling apart in that last 5 minutes. The Kings were turning the ball over. They were getting flustered on both ends of the court. They stopped doing they started doing more ISO ball, and it's just, I'm sorry, that Knicks team, you're not going to win a game against them doing ISOs, like, ever. You have to space these Eastern Conference teams out. We've talked about how lengthy Eastern Conference teams are. They're a completely different build of a team than Western Conference teams. Against the West, you actually run a chance at winning those games. But against a team like the Knicks right now, the way they play defense, I think they might be number 1 in defensive rating. I'm not sure.
They were for the month. They were for the month of March, but they've lost their last 3 games going into this game. But that was also because OG's been hurt, and
that's right.
So I want to talk about for a second, like, what seemed to bug me the whole game was just like, at least not the whole game. After the first quarter, what bugged me was, like you said, we went away from what worked, and we all of a sudden just played sloppy. Like, free throws. My God, dude, I was losing my mind. We just had another bad night. And I've noticed this with Domas in particular lately. Like, he's the past kind of 4-ish, 5-ish games, he's been struggling again from the line. Davion missed a pair. Like, you in these kind of games, like when you're trying to hold on to that momentum, making those shots matter more than anything. And then you're turning the ball over. They're hitting threes. Dante DiVincenzo's just launching them. And Jalen Brunson played a really good game, just smooth, methodical. And we talk about the blitz defense, right? At first, they were doing okay with it. Like, the Knicks were trying to adjust to it. But they adjusted to it. And then the Kings didn't have a counterpunch. And I found that to be kind of annoying because they were just getting kind of what they wanted. At that point, I wouldn't have minded Jalen Brunson just trying to go one-on-one against, De'Aaron or Keon, or try to, do the whole pick and roll. And if he tries to hit a contested jumper, I don't know, but I don't want guys running 1v1 to the bucket against Domas, or they got free lanes or wide open corner threes, and we were just giving them those kind of shots and never really adjusted back. We just kept trying to run the same thing defensively, and they figured us out. And they were able to ride that wave the whole, especially the fourth quarter. They just blew us out of the water. So
Yeah. And Josh Hart, who he's a good player, he seems to always put together great games against the Kings. He put together another great game against the Kings where he had 31 points.
he had
But
31.
yeah, but get
It
this.
didn't feel like it.
No, all of his points were from inside the paint.
Yeah. He had
He didn't
31.
shoot a single three tonight because we didn't force him to shoot a three.
I
And
watched
mind you,
that.
he can shoot the three ball, but I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'd rather him shoot the three ball than him get free lanes to the bucket or one-on-ones with Domas that he was consistently getting tonight. And that was just is mind-boggling to me. Like,
Yeah. I watched the whole game. I didn't even know he had 31. Like the way
yeah,
with the way the game was flowing, wow. That got to me a little bit because he was getting anything he wanted and we contested sometimes, and I'm not going to blame the refs for this game. I think it was a pretty decently called game. That's what happens with these Eastern Conference teams too. They know how to play aggressively and attack the basket too because you're going up against bigger bodies half the time.
Yep.
And with New York, their chemistry is, they did a really good job of just contesting what we were doing. Isaiah Hartenstein looked like Domas out there the way he was passing the ball. And, say what you want about the announcers and like how they, always favor every team that's not the Kings. But, when we talk about what the Knicks were doing, they stifled us and suffocated us at the end, and the Kings folded. And in a game on this road trip where tomorrow night we play the Boston Celtics on the road, best team in the NBA. Who
easy
knows?
win.
We step up against the top tier teams, right? But the Knicks are a good team, and we've got swept by them this year. And Foxy played well up until he had a good first half, a great first half. The third quarter, he was okay, and then just kind of fell apart. I mean, he finished with 29,
Yeah.
right? Like 29, something like that. But
Yep.
And Domas again extends his double streak to what he's had 72 double doubles this season in general, but
Mm-hmm.
he's had like 59 straight, I think is what it said.
Mm-hmm. 59.
So congrats to him. That's still, I'm going to announce it every time. It's great. It sucks in a loss because that's not what matters, right? But this was a gotta have it game, just like the second Dallas game was a gotta have it game. And any final thoughts on this game before we kind of go into the what this means?
No, I think we just dive right into it.
So obviously now we're still in eighth. We don't drop anywhere. We don't go up. But Phoenix won last night, and I saw this game. I was watching the Phoenix Cavs game. When it got into the fourth quarter, there was a stat that I didn't want to see the Kings be a part of. It was fourth point quarter differential, like point differential for the season in the fourth. Suns had a nasty one. Like it was bad. Like
Yeah.
I thought I was reading it incorrectly. They're minus 230 in the fourth quarter this year. Phoenix has struggled, but the
So
Kings
what does that mean? Minus 230.
so they're getting outscored by that much throughout the totality of all of their fourth quarters this year. So it's not just like, that's how much they've been outscored in the fourth
That's
quarter.
crazy.
So there were 4 teams that they put up on that graphic, and the Kings were one of them. This is coming from the team that had the best fourth quarter player in the league last year and usually turned it on in the fourth quarter. The Kings were minus 66, and now we're like minus 70 something now because of that stat. And up there with us was the Pistons and the Bulls. So you're on a graphic like that, you don't want to, like, that's just not a good graphic. And I saw it rear its ugly head again in this one. So there's a real chance, especially with the cookie cutter schedule the Lakers have been having lately, that there's a chance we fall to 9th. And that puts us in a play-in date game 1 with Steph Curry and the Warriors, who have been playing better since recently. They've been winning more games than they've lost, and they've kind of figured things out, even though Draymond got ejected. I think since then they've been playing better. They had a good win against Dallas. So I don't know. Like, there's a real chance we could get bumped in the play-in, especially if we fall to 9th. Like, if especially since If you're 7th and 8th, you get 2 chances. But if you're 9th or 10th, you have to win both. So you don't get one chance. If you win one, you have to play again. So there's no guarantee there either. And that's with how good the West has been and the fact that the Suns are winning and New Orleans is struggling, but they're taking over that potential 6-7 battle. The Mavs are streaking like what like you said 70% chance we were a play-in team the last time we spoke before the Dallas game. With 6 games left, has that percentage gone up or has it gone down or stayed the same? Do you think we're right at 70 or higher or lower?
It's 100% chance for a play-in team, to be honest with you. Yeah. The Kings have not proved they're anything better than a play-in team this year. And to me, it really shows in games like this where the stakes. I know that they know that the Mavs played tonight, Phoenix played last night, they know the Warriors played tonight. Like, that there are teams who are right around you playing a game at the same time, and you know how much it means to win each and every game left this season. And you come out and lay an egg like that in the second half. Like, I'm sorry, but in games like these, when you know the stakes and you just cannot figure out how to win an ugly game, that's what separates a play-in and a playoff team. It's winning those ugly games. And Dallas is doing that right now. New Orleans has done that this year. Like, the Lakers are showing right now, and they're not a playoff team, and they will not make the playoffs. They will make the play-in, right? Mm-hmm. But the Lakers, they're starting to win ugly games too. They do nothing but win ugly games. All their games this season have seemed ugly. Like, this is the frustrating part of the Kings right now, is even the ugly games are just losses. And then we'll put together a couple good games, and then it's another ugly game, and we can't win the ugly. And if you're not winning the ugly, you're not going to be anything better than a 7th to 10th seed. Not in the West.
Yeah, especially this year. Like, let's put it in perspective how difficult it's been this year. Again, our record last year would most likely end up being 8th or 9th this year if we won 48 games. Like, even if we win 50, there's a real chance we finish 8th or 7th with 50 wins because of how well everyone else is playing. In the Eastern Conference, the Knicks have the same record as us, and they're 5th, they're 4th or 5th. And that's the difference between the conferences. Is it fair? No, but that's just how it was. Last year was the reverse. Last year, the East had the better records, and you needed a higher record to get in the playoffs there. But we've shot ourselves in the foot way too many times, and this is just who we are. We've had this conversation for, I want to say, 2 or 3 months now. When they've ran out of excuses that long ago, where they've shown us who they are since the midway point of the season. They've strung together good runs, they've strung together good games, but they have yet to put on a run that was the consistent 5 to 6 game win streak, winning 11 out of 12 games. Like, we haven't done that at all this year, and that puts us exactly where we are. Now, could we go on a run and win the first 2? If we lose our last game of the year, there's a good chance we could win the first 2, win the 2 play-in games, because that's how we've been playing lately. Win 2, lose 1, win 2, lose 1. But this is where, when we're winning, I'm all about, okay, people aren't seeing us when we win. But then again, but they only pay attention to the other teams when they win. But the other teams have Steph. The other teams have LeBron. The other teams have Kevin Durant. They get the benefit of the doubt. The Kings with De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis are good, but they haven't earned anything yet outside of one playoff run and another 40-win season. That's nothing yet. And
yeah,
I would bet against us in a play-in game now, considering what I've been seeing. Had we strung together one of these runs, I'd be going in, I'd be talking totally differently and speaking much more confidently, but I just don't see it. I don't see it, dude. And
yeah, it's tough to see, especially with the it would be one thing if the Kings are struggling and so are the Pelicans, the Suns, the Lakers, the Warriors. Even give me 3 of those teams. Like, that's one thing. The fact that we're struggling right now, we're 6-4 in our last 10, okay? The Lakers are 8-2. The Warriors are 7-3. Like, the Suns are 7-3. The Mavs are 8-2. Like, these teams who have been right around the Kings all year long, they realize what's on the table position wise. They know because they've got Luka and Kyrie, and they've got KD and Devin Booker, and they've got LeBron and AD and Steph and Clay. Like, these guys have done this before.
Yeah.
They've earned it. And they're gonna come out and they're gonna try and earn it again. The Kings aren't earning it right now. They're earning a 9th or 10th spot with a 2-game win streak to get, and exhaustion to get you into the playoffs against 2 of the top teams in the West who have proven, they're, the top teams for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's a tough stretch right now, and it's hard to see as a Kings fan because there was a lot of promise going into the season, and obviously there's still hope, right? Like, the Kings, they could sneak into the playoffs. They could be the 10th seed, and they can sneak in with 2 wins, and then they're matched up against the Timberwolves, and that has proven it can go either way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's hope. Don't get me wrong. It's just, as far as what we expected of this team at the beginning of the season, what we expected this team coming out of the All-Star break, like I called the Kings being the hottest team in the league coming out of the All-Star break. That didn't happen. And it sucks. It sucks that we now have to sit here and have this discussion versus, well, it looks like we're going to have either the, this team or that team. No. Now we're talking about maybe even missing the playoffs.
Right, and falling to 9th and losing to the Warriors first game, and then all of a sudden, let's get into this other discussion we don't want to have. Now, we talked about how we might have saw Malik Monk this season in a Sacramento Kings uniform. There could be a very good chance that this would be the last, that the Mavericks game was the last game that we saw Malik Monk in a Sacramento Kings uniform. His contract is up at the end of this year. He had a 2-year, $10 million contract. Now, because we signed him to a mid-level extension, or a mid-level contract, I should say, Malik Monk is now only able to be priced out by us. The max we could give him is about a 4-year, $78 million deal, which averages out to about $17 million a year. But when you look at the open market, Malik Monk can be signed by other teams for a max deal. And what could a max deal look like for a player of Malik Monk? It'd be about the Kyle Kuzma deal, 4 years, $100 million, which is $25 million a year. So it's not wrong. It's not wrong of Malik to go and say, hey, do I want $8 more million a year? Like, I mean, or do I want to stay with this team with my best friend De'Aaron Fox as the 6th man for the next 4 years, because that's the role he's grown accustomed. That's the role he's been given in Sacramento. And even if we paid him, I don't think he enters any point in that 4 years as the starter unless, injury. But he's just been the 6th man here. And if he gets maxed out, he's going to be a starter somewhere. What do you think? And, this is a tough conversation to have. What do you think are the odds that Malik is a Sacramento King next year? And I know it's early. Like, a lot can happen, but what do you think?
It's hard to say as a Kings fan, because let me put it this way. As fans, we always want to believe that the money will come second to these guys and the situation will come first. So, we sit, for instance, I'll use myself. Like, I'll sit here and I'll be like, well, there's so much going for Malik here. Like, there's an amazing fan base here. There's his best friend on the team who he's played with since college. There's an awesome role where he's coming off the bench, but he's still getting like damn near 32, 35 minutes a game, sometimes 40, depending on how well he's playing or how terrible another player is playing, or just how much we need him, right? Like there's things going for him there. But then on the other side of it, it's like, put yourself in his shoes. If I was Malik and somebody offered me $8 million more a year to be a starter, to put the ball in my hands more, and asked me to do more, that sounds pretty nice.
So there was a take that you said during the Knicks game regarding Malik Monk. You wanna tell everyone what you think it
Yeah,
is?
absolutely. So let me start by saying, I really like Jalen Brunson. Okay, I think he's one of the most overrated players in this league, and the reason being is he's glazed, for a lack of better phrase, by fans, by media. He's in the Big Apple, which is, you're going to get like a lot of attention there, especially if you're leading a team who's struggled for decades, right? To a really good spot in the Eastern Conference. So he, there are things with Jalen's game that I don't like per se, and I compared him to James Harden in his prime. Like it seems like Jalen Brunson right now is the 13th most free throw shooting player in the league. And obviously he averages like 6 from the line, but averages versus how many you're actually shooting, it sometimes doesn't add up, right?
Mhm.
So we started talking like, would we rather have Malik or Jalen? Would you rather build around Malik or Jalen? Yada yada. And I was like, to be honest with you, I think Malik Monk is a better player than Jalen Brunson, and I would take Malik Monk over Jalen Brunson. And I think you clapped back and you were kind of like, you said like, well, if it's our team right now, I would agree with you. But if it's building without the team we have, without Foxy, without,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's another story.
yeah. I said
I
if we didn't have Fox, I would take Brunson. But if we
mhm.
did have Fox, I would object. Yeah, I would say Malik. But if I needed a point guard, I would take Jalen. Objectively.
So I would take Malik even still. And the reason being is just Malik is so explosive and he's so fun to watch. Since coming to the Sacramento Kings, he has been asked to do more offensively than any other team has asked him to do in his career, as and probably his life, to be honest with you. And he has developed so much as a player that I am genuinely curious to see if he was utilized as much as Jalen Brunson is. How does he stack up? Because I've seen the ball in his hands half the amount of time in some games as Jalen Brunson, and he has better stats sometimes. I'm not
Hmm.
saying that like he only has to have the ball half the time to be a better. No, I'm just saying that we've seen those spurts out of him, and so it really begs an interesting question. If you built a franchise around Malik Monk, who now has experience as a ball handler, experience in a pick and roll scenario, who has proven that he can be one of the most explosive players in the league, and he's so damn fun to watch. Like, this is a guy that if I have the money to offer, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to offer him a 4-year $100 million.
For sure.
Like the Kings just can't keep up with that.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't
It's going
blame.
to be up to Malik.
I wouldn't be mad at him for leaving. Right? He's earned it. He gave us 2 awesome years and was one of the reasons we were able to push the Warriors to 7 games. Like he
Yeah.
won us 2 of those games like by himself. And it I wouldn't blame him for wanting to go. Like said, let's throw a fun example because a team that I think would make a lot of sense in terms of who you can put behind him that's still young. Let's say you throw him and pair him with Wemby in the Spurs, right? Like, and the thing is, the way he's transitioned here in Sacramento, he's become more of a point guard, shooting guard combo, a
Yep.
combo guard now, where he can lead an offense. It's not just him needing to put the ball in the bucket, which he can do. So you get to run him with Wemby and get a true inside out combination with those two, and Malik's defense will be helped by Wemby and the rest of the guys around him. I don't know. I think that'd be an interesting scenario. I know the Magic get thrown around. I just wonder with like Paulo and Franz, like they have a lot of ball handlers anyway. So that wouldn't.
Philly's going to have money to offer as well.
That's not a bad idea. Him and Tyrese would be a fun mix, but I also think that'd be too undersized with not enough defense. But here's the thing with Malik though. He's the kind of player that can work anywhere. And that's the part where, and I know the playoffs were going to play a role in this for him. But without him, how far are we really going to go in the playoffs? So it's a double-edged sword, and it's the crappy position that the Kings are in now, and it's also not like if we don't sign him, then we all of a sudden have all this cap space to use. He was only $5 million a year. Like we got him at the cheapest any other team will ever get him ever. Like that was it. And he played up to a maxed out contract because he's going to be the sixth man of the year, and he sat out the last 11 games of the year, and yet will still lead the league in the numbers. So, it's sad to think about, and hopefully we hear some news moving forward that Malik, wants to be here, and we'll do everything we can, and maybe he'll take a 4-year, $78 million max that we could offer.
Yeah, and yeah, you hit it right on the head. It's just as Kings fans, I think we need to brace ourselves because there is a pretty realistic chance that Malik is in a different jersey to start next year. And it sucks. But look, man, money talks and situation talks too. And Malik has done nothing but prove that he's earned every bit of what's going to get offered to him. He's going to be bid for. Like there's going to be a bidding war for Malik. And at the end of the day, him and his agent are going to have the say in where they want to take the next 4 years. Because it'll be a 4-year. Yeah.
He deserves it. But
he does.
So, okay. Let's finish off the pod. So I know we had a final thought. We're going to keep it in Sacramento, but we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to talk some baseball to finish off the pod. Ben, you have some news? Let's deliver it. Go for it.
So as many of the sports world know, the Oakland A's have been kind of thrown around at relocating for a while. Well, they will officially be relocating to Las Vegas in 2027. There's a stadium plan in place for them to have that stadium built by that time. There was also an issue with the city, and it ended up coming into play a few cities where the A's may relocate until their stadium is rebuilt, or rather, till it's built. The Kings, Sacramento has the Rivercat Stadium, and they came into play. There was also Salt Lake City, and I believe there was one other. I can't remember the other city. But anyway, Salt Lake City and Sacramento ended up being like the top two for a while. And it was announced today that the Athletics will be relocating to Sacramento to play their 2025 to 2027 seasons at Sutter Health Park, which is the home of the Rivercats, before they make their move to Las Vegas in 2028. So this is their last season in Oakland. Now, this is sad in a lot of ways, because it really kind of for me, it brings up an old shadow, and that was when the Kings were potentially relocating to Seattle. Or rather, I think it was Anaheim. I can't remember off the top of my head. See, like I genuinely blocked it out.
Yeah.
But there was that relocation possibility that, I mean, it was essentially a done deal just over 10 years ago. And like, I remember crying my eyes out, sitting next to my dad, and my dad's like, "It's okay, son. Like, we'll still watch him. We'll still love him, yada, yada." Like,
I was at the last game, at the supposed last game. Yeah.
And it was emotional, right? Like, people were crying.
It was bad. It was like, packed. It was packed.
Yeah. And there's no denying like Oakland fans are they're top tier. They really are. They're a lot like Kings fans in that sense, or Sacramento fans. They're loud, they're rowdy, they're always supporting. Like the A's have been terrible for years and years and years, and they do have a lot of support. It's not at the games, which is a lot of the reason for relocation, but there's a fan base there that does care about this team. So it's sad to see how poorly this team has been managed for a long time now. Um, and I'm
Yeah, their
honestly
owner.
just hoping their owner's terrible. I'm honestly hoping the relocation and just the kind of change of scenery revives this ball club. But on a plus note for Sacramento, like it's such a killer opportunity for this city to really show its support for baseball. They've been showing out for the River Cats. They're one of the top attended teams in that league. They're if we show up for A's games, we're going to be heavily considered in the long term as an expansion potential city. Like this is a killer opportunity, and it's
Exactly.
exciting. I'm a low key A's fan, and it's mainly because of my buddy Shad. He really got me into it, and also my brother in law. Um, but yeah, like it's exciting because I'll be at a lot of those games. To be honest, like um, it's it's just a killer opportunity. I'm kind of stoked about it, but I do feel almost guilty in a lot of ways because we are almost a pawn for that whole situation.
Yeah, but and what I didn't find out until this morning that I didn't realize was another key figure in Sacramento, the owner of the Sacramento Kings, Vivek Ranadive, is also the majority owner of the River Cats. So this was his opportunity to say, "Hey, come play in Sacramento." Just like you said, it's the opportunity to show that baseball can eventually come to Sacktown, and it's great for the city. And the River Cats stadium is one of the most well-renowned AAA stadiums. They, people really love it. It's the best. It's been rated as one of the better ones that they can play at. So it is. I think it is a really good home for the A's. And I mean, let's face it. The A's just haven't had the best luck, and that's what happens when your ownership from top down just isn't good. They had a good
Yep,
run. I want to say what 5 or 6 years ago when they had all these, all-star level players, and then they traded them all away, and then it
as they
ended up.
always do with young talent.
Yeah, and I thought, and it was either last week or it was sometime last week or past couple games that fans in response to this were just throwing trash on the at the players at the on the in the Coliseum, and I'm like, these players, like, you're not going to sign anybody. It's like it's almost at the state of where the Kings were when the Maloofs were giving them up to go away. No, the Kings fans were loyal, but everybody hated where the franchise was. And you know, Vivek has finally, in his tenure here, he learned to stop being a fan and become a business owner. And I think he figured out how to turn this franchise around. And I think this will give, and obviously the owner is still going to be a part of it, but this will give Vivek a good chance to kind of make his imprint on the A's, and to this is just going to be great for Sacramento. I'm excited, and we'll definitely check it out. I think it'll be a fun opportunity. Because the games, baseball is fun. It's a long season, but the games are relatively cheap, so that's always fun. To go with friends and everything like that. So it'll be fun to see. Like, obviously our boy Ryan is a huge Giants fan, but he's excited about baseball coming to Sacramento, so that'll be fun. So I'm excited to see, the A's and the love that it'll bring, and the Sac fans. I'm not going to be surprised if there's a loyal A's fan base hiding around here that's going to pull up at these games. So
Yeah, and I mean it's not that far of a drive for Oakland fans too if they decided they actually wanted to show up to a game. So
yeah, and I feel bad for Oakland, like,
yeah,
now with the Warriors leaving, and now the A's, like, they don't have, and the Raiders, Oakland got stripped of its teams. And for the city, it's, obviously the city itself could have put more of an effort into, upkeeping and keeping these teams, but at the end of the day, you got to feel for, like, like it's heartbreaking. Like as a fan, like if that were our Kings and all of a sudden there's no sports in Sacramento, like what do you do? And it just
Yeah,
great for Sacramento. Sorry for Oakland and those who attended those games and who loved the team while they were there or who lived down there and that was your team. So I get it. It sucks, but great for Sacramento. And I'm excited to see because again, maybe this will shine a light and maybe we're building a professional ballpark here in the next, half decade or so.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that, yeah, I mean, the city of Oakland didn't do much they didn't do enough to keep the teams there. I mean, that's why they all ended up relocating in one way or another. That's the difference between Sacramento and Oakland, though. Sacramento takes care of their teams a lot
Fought for their
better.
teams. Yeah.
Yeah, the fan base damn sure does. Like, this fan base will go to every war, every battle for their team. Like, this is a loyal city. So bring any sports team you want here, and they're
That's
going to
true.
show out. I mean, straight up. I would not be surprised, hot take, if there is an NHL team here in the next 10 years. We have a stadium that has been filled with ice for Disney on Ice many times now. It's
It's not a,
possible,
no, I agree. Like, why not with the way the city keeps expanding? Oh, that'd be cool actually.
right?
Um, not that and that's the thing. It's like when stuff is close by, when sports are near you, it almost allows you to get closer to it. Like when you get to go to these games and you get to be a part of it, you get to engage more. And if there was a hockey team here, like whoa, if like same thing with the soccer team that got put in
Yep.
Sacramento too. You got fans pulling up to that, and they ended up making a name for themselves. So it's this city is a sports town. Sacramento is a sports town, and we always will show out. And again, huge move. Obviously, this won't happen until next season, which also gives the Sutter Health Park time to revamp. The lawn's gonna. I don't know if the lawn's gonna go away or they have to. They're gonna add more seats. It's a professional team, so there's gonna be some renovations, which will make it even better than what it already was. So
Yeah, for sure. So this podcast next year is going to be Niners and Eagles and Kings and A's. No, we're not going to report on the A's, but
I mean, we can. Yeah.
we will probably find ourselves at a game or two, and we'll probably put something out there on the
Yeah.
social medias just to show you guys, give the love out there.
I'm a huge fan of playoff baseball. Like, put me in the playoff baseball atmosphere. I'm there for it. It's no offense to those to those baseball lovers out there. Like 82 games in basketball is enough. That's like the tipping point for me. Like 162, man, like that's tough. And like I get it. There are
Yeah,
people who will watch all those games. I'm with it. Like I'm
it's a
totally okay
grind,
with that. It is a grind. So
especially as an A's
yeah.
fan.
Yeah, I feel bad.
Yeah,
So this is gonna be great. So I'm excited for what this is gonna bring to the city, and to see if maybe a change of scenery does the A's some good, like you said, before going to their next step. So I'm excited.
definitely.
So any final thoughts before we head out here?
Can we make the playoffs?
Can we?
That's it.
We're begging you, Sacramento. Come on,
Please.
Kings. Show us something. Maybe they surprise us and win the rest of the road trip. Beat Boston, beat Brooklyn, and beat OKC. And then we come back home and we play New Orleans and Phoenix, and who knows, even if we lose maybe one or two more games before those two, the game against New Orleans and Phoenix will have the final say in
Yep.
where we finish. So when we talk next week, those games will, I believe, will have, the road trip will at least have wrapped up, and we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of, we'll know, we'll be pretty sure whether or not we're a playing team or not. So
Yeah.
so with that being said, I think we can do this. But for those who thought this season was a rough one, it finished rough. Unlike last year, we weren't as lucky this time around, and that's just the nature of the beast. And listen, if I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit, but I still view this as a good, consistent season, and it shows these guys that there's still more work to do, and it shows Monty that there's more steps that need to be taken and more risks that maybe he just has to make this team better.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
So with that being said, this is episode 35 of the Behind the Back podcast. You can hit us up at behindthebackpod13@gmail.com. Hit us up on our social medias, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, Facebook, all that fun jazz. For those audio listeners who want to follow us on YouTube, you can find us there at Behind the Back podcast. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, leave any comments below. We'd love to chit chat with y'all. Any taste that you like. And stay tuned. We got a lot of playoff stuff coming on. Maybe it's play-in, maybe it's playoff. Who knows? So we will gauge it as we go. But we also got NFL draft coming up. Ben and I have been grinding the tape, getting these guys ready to go to see who we're excited for to join our teams this year. So I'm Marcos Conan-Negron, and beside me here, as always, is
Benny the Jet. We love y'all.
We love y'all. Peace.
Peace.